Hi, I'm really excited to present to you today a very special episode of the Think Tank podcast with Randall Carlson, the noted geometer and geologist who knows a lot about ancient history and, in particular, ancient lost history. I had the opportunity to spend a few hours with him going through our most recent discoveries in Egypt and across the ancient world. This is an unorthodox podcast. It's not really a podcast. It was more of a presentation of our work and my research in particular to give Randall a precursor on exactly what we've been finding and how he might actually be able to help contribute to this whole process of learning the discovery as we find our ancient roots and past that we've forgotten. I'm super excited to present this to you because he gives such a unique perspective. I learned a lot from this podcast in particular, or this discussion. And additionally, I'm looking forward to inviting him back to join us on another episode of Think Tank, where we could talk about a lot of these things because now he has a full grounding on it.
Yeah, the mystery of the pyramid, the geometry of music, that's what we're talking about, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And first of all, in the geometry, that was just based on the slope angles of the pyramids, the three pyramids, and they matched the first 8 musical intervals out of 13 just with the first 3 pyramids.
Right. That I remember from our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, okay, I don't know why I didn't think of that you'd send it to me. I was looking in both my emails. You know, where the hell? And
no worries.
Okay. All right.
And then the other thing I mentioned to you was that there was, we'd found all these petroglyphs on the walls in the king's chamber, and that it was showing the precession of equinox, which had, all the deacon of astrology. There's 36 deacons.
Yep.
And kind of a very interesting story because it's very much in line with the pyramid being some sort of clock of time.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So, in fact, what I did is pretty cool. I made this crazy game that is out of basically image the Great Pyramid using LiDAR, and was able to stitch it all together. And so you could actually see the film of it. It's super fascinating. And it's a very, very cool thing, which I will also send to you. I can actually probably share some of this stuff with you and just show it to you real quick so that you know. So these are actually images of the King's Chamber wall. Yeah. Can you see this?
Yep, I sure do.
So this is, if you look right in the center, right, it looks like there's a bull right here. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah, I see it.
Right, and this is the north wall of the King's Chamber, and there's a cow, a larger cow that's outside of it. Here's the face of the cow. Here's the eye. Here's its shoulder right here. And this is the Apis bull, and the original name of the Great Pyramid was Bull Mountain. So, and Rostau was the original name of Giza, which is Taurus backwards.
That's interesting.
So you've got the Apis bull and Hathor, which represents Osiris and Isis in her matronly form, right, as she got older. And then above it is, it looks like a bird. You could see right here what looks like the wing. And then the other side has another wing, but it's also matching. So this is Lyra constellation. And you've got a pupil right here and another pupil right here. And the profile of a face of a man, and his nose and his nostril is right here. The other nostril is here. And his lips are here. And his face comes across like this. And I'll find a better picture for you so we can see this. So the deacon of astrology is this. Right? And so Orion is in the Taurus constellation, Eridanus, Auriga. So all these constellations, you can see Pegasus, Piscis Austrinus, Delphinus, Aquila, and Sagitta. And those are in Capricorn. And so when you look at the wall of this would be the east wall, it actually looks like this. There's a woman riding a Pegasus, shooting a Sagitta arrow at the Aquila. So that's Delphinus riding Pegasus, shooting Sagitta at the Aquila. So this was the Piscis Austrinus that I was just telling you about.
Yeah.
And then so you could see on the wall that's the north wall, this is the same thing that I just showed you with the face of Orion. This is because it's in the exact location of the Orion constellation. You've got the bull underneath him, right over his throat, and Taurus represents throat chakra. And the bull looks like a diamond-shaped heart right here with straight lines. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Right here. And then there's a cow right here. And then you've got the face of Orion with the bird of Lyra on top of his face and across his eyebrows. So if you look on the right side, can you see this?
Yeah, there. That's zooming in. That's better.
Yep. So you see the nose bridge right here? It's etched into the wall.
And there's the brow ridge. That's the pupil. Is that the?
Yep, that's the pupil. This is the other pupil. Here's the nose. Here's the lips. And it looks like there's DNA going over his mouth as well, which is, first of all, kind of mind-blowing that no one's seen this before, and that it matched exactly the positions of all the constellations where they should be on the walls, which is kind of a very shocking thing. And then if you include the DNA that's going across it, it looks like this. So it's got Draco, Orion constellation, Taurus, Canis Minor, Orion, and the drawings look candidly like stylized, almost Picasso style.
I can see that, sure.
Which is very bizarre because that's not Egyptian looking. It's not Greek looking. It's not any of that stuff looking. It's very strange. This is on the south wall, and we could see Ophiuchus, who has ram horns and black face right here, and a snake going around him. And then you could see some of the other stuff that's in here. We're analyzing all of this also with AI for the patterns. But the people that can see them tend to be people that do a lot of geometry work. Something isn't right. The ease of modern digital communication comes with costs. What are these colossal technology companies doing with our words, with our energy, and with our very beings? Can you imagine an event horizon where they use against us what we unknowingly gave? Orion emerges as an end-to-end quantum secure messenger that places the freedom of expression back where it belongs, with the people. More than a platform, it's a movement to reclaim your voice and freedom, a movement of people with profound ideas and a deep desire to help the human race. Let's get back to communicating meaningfully in our lives. It's time to rise above the surveillance, the shadow bans, and the censorship. It's time to free our voices. In a time when free speech and assembly are absolutely necessary, Orion stands tall, ensuring that you can free your voice. Which is very interesting as well. So, but why is the King Chamber the shape that it is? Because if we look up in the sky, the 4 pole stars are matching that shape as well, the 2-to-1 proportion. So Polaris, Deneb, Vega, and Thuban. Which that's just kind of the way our night sky looks, and those are the 4 pole stars of precession.
Right.
So I think that the King's Chamber is like a clock.
Okay.
And it's giving us, so these would be the constellations on each wall. This is the north wall. Here's Orion. Here's Taurus, right? Eridanus. And we've got the ones that are facing the same direction of the head of Orion and Taurus, like Cygnus and Lyra right here. They show up on the upper wall. Here's a picture of the bull, a close up of it. You can see this symbol right here as well. This is also a symbol of Orion.
Okay.
It's kind of shaped like the Orion constellation. But in addition, there's 2 birds. And the one with the 2 eyes is the white bird. So it's like over the eyes. They're overlaid on top of each other. And then Cygnus is the one next to it. So you can see it up here. If I expand it a bit, here's one of the birds.
Yeah, there we go.
Right. Here's the other bird.
Yeah, I can see him.
So basically, I think we can date the pyramid based on the locations of where in Cygnus the Deneb star should be, and where it is and where Vega is as well, and where Dracos, which is Thuban, and where it is compared to Orion and to Taurus constellation, which would then also include the it's Vega, Thuban, Polaris as well. Ursa Minor is above this. There's 4 bears up there on the top of the wall as well. So we've been like, we put it into a like a game environment, and we actually have. Let's see if I can show you this real quick, which is kind of really bizarre. Let's see here. Let me stop this for just a second. All right, let me just show you this real quick.
Okay.
So I'm going to take you on a quick tour.
Let's do it. I would love it.
Inside the Great Pyramid.
Let's do it.
So so you should be able to see this now.
So I didn't know they had a nice sofa inside that in the King's
Yeah,
Chamber.
no, that's a new addition. It's a new addition.
Okay.
It's a special VIP section.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is my living room actually, and we stitched together all the LiDAR images, and you're about to see this.
Okay. All right.
Right. So basically, it takes us into. This is from Apple Vision Pro, and it's going to take us into the King's Chamber. Which Apple Vision Pro is this new thing that just came out. Looks like this.
Oh, okay.
So fast forward a little bit, and it's going to take me right into the King's Chamber. Here we go. Now, here I am. I'm in the King's Chamber.
Look at that.
How cool is that, right?
That is cool.
I got tired of spending the night in there. I spent 17 nights in there.
17 nights. Wow. Did you see?
Yeah, that's a lot of time. So I'm like walking around in my living room. You can see the furniture and stuff behind it. But you can also see that's the sarcophagus.
Yeah.
Put my hand on it. This is a really cool little thing. If you ever get one of these things, I'll get you the app. It's pretty epic.
Okay.
But you could see also, I'll kind of fast forward to some of these where we light up some of these things, right? So on the wall here, you get like a pad and you can see some of the things that we've already programmed into this. And so this is the Delphinus Sagitta shooting the arrow at the Aquila. And you can see it in the distance. I'll show you a better picture of it in just a moment. but you could see the arm, you could see the arrow going up. And what this does is it shows all of the, the stuff that's on the walls. So this is that same one that you just saw earlier.
Yeah.
Right? The bull, the cow, right? The face of Orion, it's exactly in the position of it, and this DNA thing going across. So this is quite a mystery, right? There's a lion's face exactly where it should be behind the sarcophagus. That's Leo constellation. I actually believe that the Ark of the Covenant was originally inside the sarcophagus. The Ark of the Covenant has 4 faces on it that are the cherubim. You probably might remember from Ezekiel, where it says the face of the man, the face of the lion, the face of the ox, and the face of the eagle, which is Scorpio.
Yep.
And the encampment of Israel, the 12 tribes, also carried those same flags that were all the same as the astrological symbols. So it's like they were recreating, like they took it out of the pyramid and then they recreated it in the tabernacle alignment while they were, in the desert for 40 years. So this is basically what we've, found. There's also like an third eye that's at the top of the sarcophagus, and we just haven't put it in here yet, but on both sides of the sarcophagus are eyes as well, and 2 snakes that connect to those eyes that are etched into it. All of these are etched, and I believe they're actually put there. If you've seen the research, like we talked about, where you can sit next to a glass of water and then flash freeze the water, and then it carries the image of your thought in the water. And Veda Austin and several other people at conferences that you go to often have done a lot of research on this. And now it's been proven also to be true for liquid crystal. Well, granite is at least 15% quartz crystal, and sometimes as high as 55 and 60% quartz crystal. So are these some sort of, memory thing that's basically in here? The walls have all these overlapping constellations, and the Alpha Omega is on the rim of the sarcophagus right there, which happens to be right at the 33rd inch against the 89.62 inches, which turns out to be a ratio of 1 over Euler. And the width is 5.605 inches, which is basically pi times 10 taken to its square root. And you probably know that the room's perimeter is pi times 10 meters. So we found that the meter, the foot, and the Royal Egyptian cubit have all been built into the pyramid's construction. All of the 3 measurement systems. So either the Freemasons that built it knew all of these measurement systems, or it's almost as if the pyramid was built, in a time where they knew both longitude, latitude, and it matched because the latitude is the same as the speed of light, and the longitude is 1 over pi. And that comes out to be 1 over pi, which is like 31.1342, and it's 31 degrees, 8 minutes, and 3 seconds in sexagesimal math. That's 1 over pi exactly. And if you take that same number of 31 and put it in the decimal conversion, 31.1342, divided by 360 degrees, it comes out to be 0.0864. And of course, that's the number of seconds in a day, 86,400.
Yeah.
A number you've presented on tons. So, so basically, this is where the Alpha Omega are. And I'll show you better photos of that in just a second. But basically, this is what we've ostensibly found. And it's matching all these constellations. And we're now putting them all into the walls so that, everyone can see them nice and clearly. And basically, let's see here. Let me find this other one for you. Another interesting thing is that this was a map that I found from 1457 by a guy by the name of Fra Mauro, who is an explorer and a cartographer. And this sits in the Galileo Museum in Florence. And if you look at the name of the Nile River, it's Gihon, which is the name of the river that came out of the Garden of Eden. Okay, and there are four rivers, place where four rivers meet. Well, Josephus and Herodotus both claimed that the Nile was originally the Gihon River.
Mm.
So these are the two major historians, and yet it's been changed, right? And of course, Babylon was supposed to have been on the banks of the Gihon River. And what's interesting is that, we never really found Babylon in Mesopotamia. There's not a lot of evidence. So there were two camps. There was sort of like the biblical scholar camp that said that Gihon River was in Egypt, and then the academic, which said no, it was in Mesopotamia. But Gihon is a reference to the word Cush, which means gushing water. And the Cushite people were from Ethiopia, Somalia area, and in between Sudan and Egypt. And they had control several times in history of the whole Egypt area. So there were never the Cush people in Mesopotamia. And I looked at all of the records and everything on this. So I think there's something going on. And I actually believe that what we might be looking at with Abu Rawash, where you have two pyramids that were exploded that match the Philosopher's Stone proportions, the one on the back of the dollar bill and the other one in equilateral triangle.
Mm-hmm.
That may have been what we reference as the Tower of Babel, because also the original name of Giza and Cairo at the time of Jesus was Babylon.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why today in downtown Old Cairo, it's called Babylon. So I think our history is like off. And interestingly, it's right across from Abu Rawash. And if Abu Rawash were built today, fully standing as a rose granite entire outer construction pyramid, it would be standing 600 feet high because of the elevation being 300 feet higher than the Great Pyramids. So imagine a pyramid that's 120 feet higher than the Great Pyramid, and you're looking from the Giza Plateau. That would be an incredible thing to behold, because it would be at 60 degree angle. Super steep. And that is the measured angular, slope angle value, apothegm, of the Abu Rawash Jed Pyramid, the Jed Pyramid, Jed Efre.
Do you have an image of that pyramid, the ruins of it?
Yes. In fact, I do. I think that you've been there before, haven't you? I think
Yes.
You went there.
Yes, I did.
With it's the one that's got the big giant pit, and it's got a big hole in it, and I'll show you that in just a second. The way that all of this was found, right, and we also correctly predicted the next chamber. This was done by Jean-Pierre Houdin and was published, but we had already predicted on my TV show that this was going to be the location of the next chamber because it matches the Vitruvian Man.
Mm-hmm.
So Da Vinci put these horizontal lines on the Vitruvian Man's body, and up atop it says he cut his man into 14 parts. That's a reference to the Osiris story of being cut into 14 parts.
Mm-hmm.
And when you overlay the pyramid and understand the squaring of the circle aspect of it, each of the locations of the chambers is exactly on the lines that Da Vinci left. The subterranean chamber, the ground level, the Queen's chamber, King's chamber, and also the next would be the throat. But then it also begs the question that there would be another one at the pineal gland and one at the crown.
Mm-hmm.
So I've shared this with Egyptian Egyptologists community. They're very intrigued. We found that Da Vinci lived in Egypt for almost 4 years. During the missing years that he was not in Italy, he wrote a letter to Sultan Qaitbay, who was the Sultan of Cairo, actually referred to as the Sultan of Babylon, not Cairo. He was a Mamluk Sultan who was Circassian. Circassians were from Ukraine today, which would be called Crimea. Mm-hmm. And Da Vinci's mother was a Circassian slave. So there's a lot of precedence here. and also there was very strong trade routes between the Medici family, and Sultan Qaitbay. So Sultan Qaitbay hired several European polymaths to build several of the mosques and castles and buildings in Cairo that still stand there today, because that's why they look very Tuscan style. A lot of that period looks very Tuscan style. So basically, the place at Abu Rawash, I'll show you this. So this is the Jed Efre pyramid.
So you had to come. Yeah, this is not a place you want to fall.
So we're 8 kilometers northwest of the Great Pyramid, in exactly an angle that matches the pyramid slope angle to the corner of the Great Pyramid.
This is already the same height as the Great Pyramid, look, because we're so much higher, right?
So it's large block construction. And you can see that the rose granite blocks are exploded out hundreds of meters from that center point that I'm standing on.
Yeah, I can't quite make it out on the image. Can you enlarge your screen there, your share screen a little bit? Maybe
Say again?
Well, I was wondering if you could enlarge
Yep, sure.
your share screen view. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay. Okay, where... Show me the blocks, the granite blocks.
So you'll see. So if you look at the blocks as I'm walking up here, right, they're all large block construction, but you could see burn marks and everything. Like this pyramid exploded, like literally exploded. And I'm at the very top of what's left over. There's probably 20 concourses, and then the rest is all exploded out. And so this is the view of Giza from there. You see all those blocks down there?
Down on the flat land there?
Yeah, next to where the bus is and the cars and everything. Those are all rose granite blocks.
That were part of this pyramid.
That were a part of this pyramid.
Well, that's pretty wild.
They're exploded all the way out, like hundreds of meters. It's crazy. And then there's a pyramid that's the satellite that's right in front of it right here. And that's the same one on the dollar bill. It's a 67.4 degree angle, which is a 5/12/13 right triangle, half cross section. And
where is that on this image?
It's right. That's what I'm looking at right here. This thing right here. This pyramid right here has 86.4 feet as its base width.
Oh yeah.
And the height was 103.7 feet. And it's 67.4 degree angle, right? And the number of blocks on the side that we can't see here is matching the dollar bill. The number of blocks on the first 4 or 5 concourses of the dollar bill as well. It's fascinating. So the Freemasons, I think, somehow knew something about this. Mm-hmm. And these were referred to forever as the Jed pyramids. And you probably heard about the Waz scepter and Jed and raising the Jed. The reason why they called it Jed was because it already was called Jed. And they said, oh, it must be the Jed Efre pyramid because they found a large crevice next to the larger of the two pyramids that they thought was a place for a solar boat, but they never found a solar boat. So they thought, well, there's a solar boat in Giza that was left by Jed Efre, so this must be Jed Efre. But actually, I don't believe that's the case, right? So basically, Abu Rawash is matching the pyramid, right? The smaller of the two pyramids is matching this proportion exactly. This is the Gaius Cestius pyramid in Rome that also has the Philosopher's Stone, the same as the dollar bill pyramid, the Eye of Providence. And this was built in 36 BC, and it still looks almost brand new today.
It sure does.
And there's so this is the other side of the pyramid. So now you can see the large block construction of the larger Djed pyramid. And so that pyramid was a 60-degree angle, the larger of the two, and it had equilateral triangles on it. So the two representations of Philosopher's Stone, which I believe represent the pineal and pituitary glands, the pineal being the sharper of the two pyramids, the 67.4, and the pituitary being 60. This was likely the crown chakra, because we believe that the Giza Plateau was the throat. That's why it's also matching the music. So here are the slopes.
I see, yep.
So this is Michael Myers' Atalanta Fusions, which has the same 67.4 degree angle. And then this is the regular Philosopher's Stone, which I'm sure you're very familiar with.
With your
equilateral triangles.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is really what it would look like. One of them was 86.4 feet wide, 103.7 feet high, and that represented the pineal gland. And the larger of the two pyramids was 345.6. So it's the same base size exactly as Menkaure Pyramid, except that it has a 60-degree slope angle and represents the pituitary gland. But both these pyramids were literally exploded. We don't know how, right? So this is the picture of, if we look here, Osiris was cut into 14 parts. Da Vinci cut his man into the same location cuts. The line at the groin, right? The line at the chest, the line at the shoulder, and at the elbow and the wrists, right? And at the knees too.
Uh-huh.
So this is basically what we found. And then here's the dollar bill, which matches that exact same proportion.
Interesting.
Now, this is the whole Nile. And I'd done all of this analysis on the Nile to look at all the temples and found that they all had correspondences to musical notes as well and astrological symbols. So that music, literally a harmony of spheres, and our precession of equinox also follows a musical relationship. And then you've got the opening of the lotus flower up here at the top into the Mediterranean, starting at Abu Simbel for the root. So you could look at it like this, that each of the temples are representing different astrological zodiac signs. And you have a male and female representation temple in several places, like Dendera and Abydos. They're the same, that would be the heart chakra, and represented by the Hathor. So the temple of Hathor. And the Apis bull, of course. Taurus represents the throat, which of these would be like the vocal cords, right? And then you get to Abu Rawash, which is up here. It's the last set of pyramids going north. And you've got pineal gland and pituitary. So this is what we talked about. We talked about the square root of 2 and suffering and difficulty. And you add it to the square root of 3, and it comes out to very near pi. And when you look at the degrees that represents of a 360-degree circle, it comes out to the golden number. 1618 is the square root of 2. So 161.8 degrees. So it's like the suffering and lead turns into golden ratio. Duality turns into gold in the context of the Trinity. So these were the pyramids, and each one of the proportions of Menkaure, Khafre, the Great Pyramid, are all matching these proportions that give us the diminished fifth, the perfect fourth and fifth, the major third and minor sixth. And that's what's defining the slope angles. That is the slope angle for Menkaure. That can only be made by a 5/4 right triangle. from its cross section. The Great Pyramid represents both unison and doubling the octave because of its 2/1. So you've got 5/4, 4/3, and 2/1. And these are the proportions of the pyramid. So we have 2/1 pi. So the ancients figured out that that perfectly squares the circle because the base of the 2/1 pi relationship, which is down here. So 2 pi over 1 pi and 1 pi over 1 pi, and then 2/1 pi are all built into the proportions of the Great Pyramid, giving it the 51.85397 degrees, which allows for a circle that would extend from the base of the pyramid to its apex to have the same circumference as a square built on 1/2 of the base of the Great Pyramid. So if you just make a square of 1/2 of its base, it will have a perimeter equal to the circumference of the circle that goes from the base and uses the height of the pyramid as the diameter of a circle. So it squares the circle perfectly as a perimeter and circumference value.
Yeah, I'm going to have to hear that again to get in my. So let's go through that one more time, if you don't mind.
Sure. Actually, I could probably show it to you this way.
Okay.
Which might be even better, right? So I'll take you into GeoGebra. Hopefully you can see this. Here we go. Okay. Come on. Here we go. All right. Have you used this program before, GeoGebra?
I have not. I've looked at it and thought I need to download it and use it as a matter of fact. So I'm glad you're reintroducing me to it here.
It's a good one. It's kind of hard to learn, to be honest. I mean, it was a pain. So let's see here. I'm going to find you. Here we go.
Now, each of these thumbnails I'm seeing here are those things you've done in GeoGebra?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. It's the most accurate because it allows you to be able to get 17 digits of accuracy on every calculation.
Okay. All right.
So that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Right. So here we go. So this is the pyramid proportions. So if you look at this, would be the Great Pyramid, assuming it had a pyramidion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And its base right along here, right? And I can get the measurement here. Distance. Okay, its base is 432. Now, this is a unit of measure that I found showing up all over the world. 432, so 432 long cubits.
Long cubits, which translates to what?
Translates to 1.75 feet.
1.75. So that's a little bit longer than the.
It's a little bit longer than the Royal Egyptian cubit.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because it's like a translation between 440 hertz and 432 hertz. 440 hertz would give you 1.718. 432, if we made the direct translation based on this, would give you 432 long cubits for 440 Royal Egyptian cubits.
Okay.
So if we look now at the circumference of the circle, right, which is this one right here, it is a circumference of 8.64.
In the long cubits?
In the long cubits, yes. So 8.64 long cubits. We look at the, if we just make a square, right, of 1/2 from here. Let's see. Do this. There we go. I go to squares. Okay. So I'm going to make a square here to here. And then I'm going to do a measurement on that square's perimeter. Only the Great Pyramid does this. The perimeter, using half of its base length, turns out to be 8.64, and the circumference of the circle going to the top. It looks like the circle disappeared from me there. Here it is. There it is 8.64. So the Great Pyramid literally squares the circle perfectly from a perimeter and circumference perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's accomplished because of its 51.85397 degree angle. So you could convert this to 2 over 1 pi would be 1/2 of its base. So 2 over 1 pi. So if you had a height of 2 here, right, up to the top of the pyramid, then this length right here would be 1 pi. And what's interesting about this is that it's also matching, you've probably seen this before, Shamash and the winged disk. So if I did half of that circle and took this length right here, right, this circle right here, and I look at its length, 4.32, which is equal to the length here of 4.32. And those are the proportions that we see on the winged disk.
So the 432, again, just for clarification, that's the long cubit.
That's the long cubit.
And what was the, let me get that again. So the long cubit works out in, when you translate to feet?
1.75 feet.
Just 1.75 feet. Okay.
Yep.
So 432.
And I think somehow this relates to your proportionality of 43,200 times.
Well, yeah. And this is interesting. Okay, so if I use 1.75 as the long cubit times 432, it gives me 756 feet.
Yep, and that is the base width of the Great Pyramid.
Yeah. Now, if I go that times the square root of 2 to get the diagonal of the pyramid base, I get 1,069.145 feet. And if I convert that to inches, I get 12,829 inches. And bizarrely, the latest date for the lower Younger Dryas boundary is 12,820 years.
Wow.
So if you take double, measured in inches, then double that diagonal, gives us 25,659.
Which is about the long cycle of the precession. Pretty close.
Pretty close.
25,920.
Yeah.
Which also matches the number of breaths that we take in one day. On average.
On average. 25,920 breaths?
Yes. We have a breath for every 3 1/3 seconds.
Oh, okay.
So 86,400 divided by 3 1/3 equals 25,920 breaths.
Yeah, it sure does. Oh, man. Huh.
Which then, if you multiply that by 72 years, you end up with, it's the same as 25,920 squared, which is the speed of light in miles per hour, 671 million.
So 25,920 squared is what did you say again?
671 million.
Yeah. That's in miles per hour?
Miles per hour.
Miles per hour. Okay. Miles per hour. Then, so then that times 3,600 would give you your miles per second.
Yep.
Presumably, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Miles.
So I think there's definitely something connected to your 43,200 reference. And I think the actual value of the unit of measure for the Great Pyramid is 432 long cubits. And I find that same measurement all over the world in different pyramids.
Now, the long cubit, this is first I've heard of the long cubit, other than you mentioning that to me in our conversation last week. Is there any independent?
Not that I've seen. I read the book, The Megalithic Yard.
Yeah, Alexander Thom.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And they don't make reference to it. I did not see it in any of that book. I mean, their reference to the megalithic yard, I believe, was the Euler number. It was 2.72.
Yeah.
So I think there's something. Look, first of all, 432 is a critical number. Why is it so critical? Because Euler to the power of pi, right? 1 over Euler to the power of pi equals 10 to the fourth power over 4.32. I'll show you this. So Euler to the power of pi, then we take 1 over that, 4321, Detractus.
Malcolm Bendel's plasma technology, his thunderstorm generator, which is based on a series of concentric cylinders and spheres, found that the optimum effect was accomplished when the ratio of the spheres was 4:3:2.
Yeah.
And further, you'll get this. When it sets up this vortex of whirling plasma, so the plasma is injected into the sphere, and it creates a vortex, which is then travels down the cylinder. Now, there are concentric cylinders like 4, 3, and 2. And so the vortexes will be whirling clockwise between the outer and the inner. Then the next one, it'll be counterclockwise. Then the next one, it'll be clockwise, which creates an implosive effect. Now, when this vortex of whirling plasma transitions from the sphere to the cylinder, in order to prevent turbulence from being introduced, there has to be an angle. In other words, the cylinder doesn't just come into the sphere circular. There's an angular transition piece. 51, in his experimenting, is that the optimum angle for that transition was the pyramid angle.
It makes sense. It actually does make sense, because actually, if you look at Euler to the power of pi, which obviously is related directly to the Euler's identity, it's the most beautiful equation in mathematics. E to the I pi plus 1 equals 0.
Yeah.
But what we found is that there's a true real value for the imaginary number, and it's the square root of 10 divided by 10, and it takes on a negative characteristic. So what happens is when you do e to the I pi plus 1, and you use the square root of 10 divided by 10 for that value, it turns out that the answer is no longer e to the I pi plus 1 equals 0. It's e to the I pi plus 1 equals light, which is the fine structure constant. It comes out to 1.37036. That's the number that Carl Sagan put on Voyager spacecraft.
How about that? So let me get this. The square root of 10.
Yes. So I'll just show you on the calculator here.
Yeah.
So the square root of 10, I found that prime distribution relates in the beginning to the square root of 10. It doesn't end up at the Euler number for the natural log for the distribution of primes until you get out to like 10 to the 12th power, right? The number of prime numbers is very correctly oriented when you use a base logarithmic value of the square root of 10. So it's fundamental to our number system. So we've got the square root of 10, right? And then if I took this number, right, which is 3.162277660168379, okay? I'm going to divide this, or take its reciprocal value. It's the only number that does this. Its reciprocal is equal numerically to its original number.
Yeah, I see that. That's wild.
Right. And so when you've got a differential between 10 times of something or orders of magnitude, the two numbers, when multiplied by each other, take on differential polarities. So you have one that's a positive charge, the other becomes a negative charge. So then its reciprocal becomes this, negative.
Mm-hmm.
So now if I take this number and I multiply it by the square root of 10, just like this, I now have an imaginary number, -1. And this is a new type of square roots that we found and we published, and it's called fractal roots. That every number has a fractal root pair that can be cubed or to the fourth power or the fifth power, and they sit 10 times, one order of magnitude apart, and one number takes on the positive and the other takes on the negative characteristic. So this gives us now e to the I pi plus 1 equals 1.37, which is light. And by the way, if I take 1.37 and I multiply it by pi, I get 4.32. The circumference.
Say that again.
So 1.37, or the
Right.
golden angle,
Yep.
right? So 432 divided by pi to give us the diameter is 137.
Uh-huh.
So in Royal Egyptian cubit, right, the height of the pyramid is 280 Royal Egyptian cubits. But in the long cubit, the midpoint of the Great Pyramid is 137.5098 long cubits.
Okay.
So what we've got here is a circle that the key, right, there's a key here. The key is the understanding how to construct a circle with a circumference that's equal to the base line of the pyramid. That's the key. And once you understand that, and that's the basis of Metatron's cube. So you could construct the entire Giza Plateau without any measurements, just like the old Greek and Egyptian method, no measurements, using only Metatron's cube, which is kind of mind-boggling. So I think all of this is related to this work you're talking about with Bendel as well. So, for example, if I take e to the power of 1 over pi, gives me again the golden angle. 1.375 effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So these are fundamental. 432 and 4321, right, are fundamental to this tetractys structure. And not only that, it's fundamental to Euler and Pi's relationship, because Euler and Pi together make light and time from a physics perspective. So another thing that's worth pointing out is that Khafre pyramid is here, the smaller pyramid of the two.
Yeah.
And if we take its circle, right? So we take its 1/2 base square for Khafre is this, this is the Great Pyramid square, right? But it's the same as the blue square here. But if we took 1/2 the base of Khafre, we find something very unique, because it shows us that the two match up with each other. I'll show you here. Okay, so now I take, and I'm going to make a square from 1/2 the base of Khafre, right? Which I'm going to go here like this. And then from its midpoint, which I could find just doing this, make an X across here. So this is the 1/2 base Khafre square.
Mm-hmm.
Perpendicular line. Okay, there we go. So now I'm going to make a square that's at the center, just like this. Okay, now I put the other one on this side. So now we've got this square that we could construct from here
Now
to
that's
here.
the square on the half side of calf rays,
Correct.
and you've just centered it on the vertical axis.
I just set it on the vertical axis.
Got it. Okay.
So now I'm going to change the color so that we, don't get confused. And we'll make it this color right here. Okay, so it's this square right here. Okay. Now, if we take that and then also look at the Great Pyramid square, which is this one right here.
Okay.
This one, this larger square.
The outer one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, look what happens. The Great Pyramid's larger, the square, which is based on one half of its base, the same as the blue square right here, just centered at the vertical axis.
Got it.
Is touching exactly perfectly.
Now that's wild.
The calf ray circle, which extends from its base to its apex.
All right. So, okay.
Okay.
So, what the hell is going on here, Robert?
This is a combined plan. These were all built at the same time. How could you convince somebody this is what you're going to build when you die? It'd be really difficult. We've got some missing notes you got to fill out here. These are all built at the same time, I believe. And the other thing that's interesting is we look at Menkaure Pyramid. Menkaure is the only one that has perfectly this proportion locked into its structure. So the 5/4 height over 1/2 base of the major third gives us a 51.34 degree angle. And its 1/2 base square exactly does the same thing as the Khufu square matching the calf ray circle. It does it inherent to its height. So here's its circle from its base to its height. And the height of the Menkaure Pyramid is 216 feet. The height of calf ray pyramid is 144 meters. And the base is 216 meters. So the unit of measure for calf ray is meter. The unit of measure for Menkaure Pyramid is the foot. And the unit of measure for the Great Pyramid is actually the long cubit. And they're all pointing back to 432, just in different reference points. So 144 goes into 432. Three times. So you got 432 for the Great Pyramid, 144 meters goes into 432 three times, and then the Menkaure Pyramid is 216 feet, which goes into 432 two times.
Yeah.
What do we got going on here, Randall?
I don't know. I'm waiting here for you to enlighten me.
I mean, is this kind of interesting to you?
Absolutely. And 216 feet, of course, is the cube of 6.
Yes.
And a lot of other interesting things.
Exactly. Which is the compass as well. It's the moon's diameter is 2,160 miles.
Yeah.
The compass has 21,600 minutes.
Yeah. And the length of 1/12 of the
precession of equinox of 25,920, 2160, 1 aeon.
Yeah.
So what I found is that I could construct all of this without any measurement whatsoever, and it was all just in Metatron's cube.
Starting with Metatron's cube.
Yep. So I'll show you this real quick. So we did this film called The Holy Grail of Geometry. Okay, and here it is.
Make memories with Get Your Guide. Unforgettable travel experience.
Okay, here we go.
After we get
All right, here we go.
Secrets were deliberately hidden within the works of Shakespeare to preserve their purity through. Let's examine the basic grid connecting these circles or spheres with the unit diameter 1. Since this angle is 30 degrees, the length is always a ratio of root 3, no matter what fractal of the grid we're observing. We find the exact same proportion in the very first construction of Euclid's Elements, the vesica piscis, a sacred symbol used in medieval art to depict a halo of.
You can skip a bit here.
If there was a simple key to the seeming complexity of the Giza pyramids, it must be found somewhere within the inherent geometry created by connecting every center of the 13 equal circles to every other center, which when accomplished looks like this. It's been known since Plato's time that by selectively connecting certain combinations of these lines, the 5 Platonic solids, the basic building blocks of creation, can all be perfectly formed within Metatron's cube. It's also clear to see that every Metatron's cube connects to every other Metatron's cube directly through its 3 central axes in an infinitely repeating grid pattern. So, can this interconnectivity be used to decipher a previously unforeseen grid connecting the 3 pyramids? Green's discoveries of hidden geometries on the cover of Shakespeare's sonnets revealed not only the geographic coordinates of the Great Pyramid, but the math constant that predicts its corner slope angle. It's positioned in such a way
with that green panel you just shown on the pyramid, that's showing the indentation.
Conundrum that Johannes.
What'd you say? Sorry there.
Well, on the graphic of Khufu's pyramid, I believe is what that is. There, it's kind of small on my screen, but you showed the green filled-in triangle, and that is the marking the indentation. Is that correct?
Yes, it was the apothem angle. So if I expand this, it's not showing up expanded for you, huh?
Nah, it's not.
Okay, let me try. Is that larger now?
Yeah, that's larger.
Okay, so here's how it works. So you take Metatron's cube and you connect. Can you see where my cursor is?
Yes, I can.
You connect where this intersection is here from this line and this line, and then you connect it to this intersection here.
Yeah.
Right, which connects here, right, at this line, and then through this line. And then where it crosses over this rectangle, which is root 3 over 1 proportion, you mark it. So you don't need measurement. You simply mark it and then draw a circle from it. And that gives you the base width of the Great Pyramid.
Wow. Okay.
And then the height of the pyramid is just to the center from that base of Metatron's cube. Right here. And that gives you the 51.8539 degrees.
Yeah. There it is.
There she is. And then from this, you could easily construct as well the Khafre pyramid, which comes in as follows. So you make a square of the Da Vinci square. I mean, not the Da Vinci square, but just the base, half base of the Great Pyramid square, which is this one right here, the blue. You put a diagonal across it. You mark the center point. You don't need measurement for any of this. And then where it crosses the center point line, You draw another diagonal, find that center point of the circle, then draw another circle that just goes just slightly shy of the center point. And then that gives you exactly the height of Caffrey and the 3, 4, 5 relationship. You just take the top of that circle and you draw this 3, 4, 5 triangle. And then where that crosses over that half point diagonal to the center, the red dots define the slope of Caffrey Pyramid exactly. And the 53.13 degrees. So now we've got two of the pyramids on Giza in the exact right proportion to each other, just from Metatron's cube with no measurements. And then we do the we do the following to find Menkaure. But notice the circle of Caffrey is matching the exact points of the square of Khufu, showing the intentionality. It's something about the square masculine meeting the divine feminine. And then we follow the next process, which gives us exactly Menkaure Pyramid, which now we draw these two circles, right, from the center point. And then see where they overlap that midpoint diagonals. And then from there, we draw an X to the corners, mark the center point of the intersection. Then we draw a circle. And where it intersects those midpoint diagonals, we draw a square. We drop the square right there. And that's the 1/2 base square of Menkaure Pyramid. So then we have proportion of Menkaure as well, all from Metatron's cube. With no measurements.
So it looks like these guys were master geometricians, doesn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So then you just double that base of that square, and that gives you the base width of Menkaure Pyramid. Defined by the green circles, and then pull up your slope. To me, this is a Giza plan.
It sure has the appearance of that, and I'm going to have to take a day next when I get back from Nashville and just go through this geometry step by step. With my compass and straight edge in hand.
Absolutely. And I mean, we've actually done 3 in the series of this Holy Grail of Geometry. And we relate it all to music. It all comes back to music, actually. It's all musical interval. And it's quite beautiful. And it's all tetractys and tetragrammaton. So this is like the ancient wisdom stuff. So I wanted to share those things with you because I think we got something that we're starting to like have emerge.
But it's so sophisticated, though, that it's you can almost understand how the mainstream academia is having trouble with this because they're so locked into their paradigms of prehistory. There's no place for anything like this in the thinking or the mindset of ancestors 5 to 10,000 or 20,000 years ago.
Absolutely.
But,
so this is, I think what we're dealing with here is some really advanced understanding of mathematics and music combined. I think there was a plan. The architectural plan is Metatron's cube, which makes sense because it's the one form that can give us all of the different Platonic solids.
Yep.
and even the Archimedean and the Catalan. And to me, that's very fundamental because it shows something about the hand of an architect that was clearly planned.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not only there. We found that the other pyramids around the world, in Teotihuacan, in Chichen Itza, they're all matching the same numerical grid pattern of integers that create their slope angles. And I think I was probably one of the first, I don't know who else has done this, that really analyzed why the ancients built the slope angles that they built for all the pyramids, because they're all different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I found they're all Pythagorean musical notes
Mm-hmm.
in just tuning.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting numbers here coming up. In particularly, I'm very interested in the processional numbers and the idea that the processional wheel is punctuated by events. You could just say nodal points where things happen. And I'm going to guess that if we could somehow reconstruct the geometry of time, we would find the intersection, just like you were finding in the diagram. The keys to it's like each step sort of generates the next step. You have to have a starting point, but then you can create the whole geometry once you know that starting point.
Yep.
For I would guess now Metatron's cube, it's been a few years since I've drawn Metatron's cube, but it begins just with the two overlapped circles in the vesica with the square root of 3 over 1.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
which the square root of 3 we just talked about is the essence of divinity and the Trinity.
And so from there, we can then create the entire Metatron's cube, and then inherent within that geometry is the architecture of
The Giza Plateau.
The Giza Plateau, yeah. There it is.
Which is super beautiful when you think about it. It's like, wow, that's epic. And I think what we're finding, even I can take it a step further to show the intentionality, because if you look at the area of the Great Pyramid cross-section of the triangular structure itself, it comes out to the same value as the perimeter and the circumference. It's like matching up again. And that's kind of another mind boggler, right? It's like, really? You got to be kidding me. I'll just show you this real quick.
Sure.
Okay, so you can see this again, right?
Yep, I sure can.
All right, so now if we look at the area, I'll just get rid of some of these extra squares. So I can find the area of this, the Great Pyramid, which is 5.904, right? Look at the area.
You said the area of the Great Pyramid.
The area of the Great Pyramid is exactly matching the area of the circle. Right here. Look at that. 5.9404264199. And the area of the Great Pyramid is 5.904269404264199. It's the same value. So it's like triangling the circle.
So when you're talking the area, you're talking about the area of one of the faces?
Yeah. So the area of the face of the pyramid as a cross section, right? It wouldn't be the actual slope.
Yeah,
it would be the cross section.
Right.
Right. It matches the area of the circle that goes from the base and uses the height as the diameter of the circle. Again, showing like extreme intentionality. So just to repeat, let's get rid of some of this here, get some of the clutter out. So we've got the square that was the half base square of Khufu, the Great Pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
And it was matching up with its position to exactly the circle of Khafre. Again, showing the intention. And the circle of the Great Pyramid, which has a circumference, right, of 8.64, this one right here, 8.64, is the same as the perimeter as this square of the Great Pyramid, which is 8.64. So this is matching this. And then the Great Pyramid's cross-section area is 5.9404, and that's exactly matching the circle from the base to the apex of the pyramid as its area. It's pretty genius.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm going to have to work through that, and I'm going to do that. It's going to be fun.
I think you're going to have a really good time with it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's pretty amazing. And that all of it could be found just in the inherent lines of Metatron's cube.
Right.
Wow.
You can see right here, Robert, is my compass straight edge and my large drawing pad.
Uh-huh.
On my octagon table, and there's my model of the Great Pyramid sitting in the center of the table.
I see it.
Inspire me.
I see it.
You can see it right there now.
Mm-hmm. I'll send you a gift this year for your birthday. When's your birthday?
Well, actually, it's the 26th of this month.
Wow. Okay, so very close. I've made a geometry set of high precision instruments because I was never happy with any of the ones that are out in the market.
Uh-huh.
So I made one and designed it from scratch, very, very high precision, a whole set. And the ruler has no measurements to adhere to the ancient ways. But it's a very nice set. I'll send it to you just for fun.
Yeah, and I was just gifted this, which I haven't used yet.
Wow, the cubit.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Who gave that to you?
I forget his name. He showed up at one of the conferences and said, "I made this for you." And I mean, it's
very cool.
He's done a pretty amazing job with it.
That is amazing. That's really nice. I mean, I saw, so it's got the seconds and everything. Yeah. I saw one similar to that in the museum in Cairo the last time I was there.
Damn, I wish I could remember the guy's name.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I think what we should do, Randall, is maybe we should let you take all this in because it's a lot to take in.
I think you're right.
And then we can we'll schedule another time to do the podcast, and hopefully we can get the sound totally right because it's still kind of quiet.
Okay.
And but I wanted to take you through some of this so that you'd have the context because I think there's a bigger story that's emerging here.
Oh, I think so. And
and I'd love for you to work with us on it because I think you bring an expertise that nobody else on, that I'm associated with. I work with Renaissance cryptographers and astrology experts and astronomy experts, but I have nobody that has your kind of expertise on geology that we associate with at all. And I think the Earth history too. And I believe that's what we're being told. Yeah, I believe that this is a giant clock that's telling us when the pole shifts happen.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, although I haven't framed it in terms necessarily of pole shifts, I've framed it in terms of points of discontinuity. And those points of discontinuity are essentially where the propensity for catastrophic shifts occur. And I've done let's see if I've got it here handy before we wrap it up. I might have it. Let's see if I can pull this up quickly.
Sure.
And the name of my new podcast that I'm launching.
Yeah.
I just recorded the first episode last night. That's why we were having a little problems here. Is called Squaring the Circle. Yeah, Squaring the Circle. Look at that.
That's perfect. Divine masculine, divine feminine.
Here it is.
That's a beauty.
Well, that's backwards, but you can see.
I can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are no coincidences.
No, there apparently not. Let's see if I've got this here. Handy. Yeah, let's see. This is a lot of this stuff. I'm going to. So let's see. I should be able to share screen here with this presentation. Okay, let's see. I have to upload a slide presentation. So
you should be able to share your whole screen, like entire screen.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Let's try.
And then you have to click on the screen.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, let's see. So Chrome window. Let's see. Window. Okay. This, I believe.
You just like select that screen.
Share.
There you go. You got it.
There you go. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. So you can see here.
I can. Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. And here's the colors, the frequencies of the colors. How those ratios line up with the geometry. Then the Platonic solids with the numbers of the angles of the faces, and then your astrological time cycles. And let's see what else here have I got here. Okay, so then this one here, you can see all the numbers. Now, these are idealized numbers, but they're all here. There's the 4320. Yep. If I keep going here, let's see. I should have, 43,200 miles radius of the sun. Exactly. 2,160 miles radius of the moon. Then the Earth numbers here, which, so essentially the Earth's diameter goes from 7926 roughly at the equator to 7,900 at the poles.
Yeah, and it comes out to roughly 7915 or 7920.
79. If you take the Earth is an oblate spheroid.
Yep.
But if you take a perfect sphere with the same surface area as the Earth's oblate spheroid, it comes out to virtually 7920.
Yep.
In other words, create an idealized spherical Earth, and it's going to be right at 7920. And then, here's the diatonic scale with the numbers. And then I get into the cycles of global change and the rhythms of the change, which are very interesting and seem to correspond roughly, but pretty precisely, actually. And you figure, okay, the way I look at it is you have an idealized template, just like any architect works from a set of blueprints.
Yep.
Right. And everything is idealized on those set of blueprints. Now, when you translate from a conception,
adjustments,
conception to a blueprint, then to the real tangible three-dimensional material manifestation of that, you're going to get some slight variation.
Yeah.
And that variation, more or less, is the measure of the degree of craftsmanship applied to the project, right? So that's my way of looking, okay, if we look at the solar system, we find, okay, you can argue that maybe the moon isn't exactly 2160, but that's not the point. They completely
right.
miss the point.
Yep.
And actually, because the moon is somewhat of a distended shape, just like the Earth in its own way, you can actually find a diameter of the Earth that is 7,920. And it actually, interestingly, comes very close to the tropics of Capricorn and Cancer. If you slice that diameter line through the Earth at the tropics, it comes out very, very close to 7,920.
Yeah, that's very similar. I've done very similar work. In fact, I took the square and circle of Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man and then inscribed squares and circles within those, and I found every planet in the solar system proportion fits into the circles that inscribe within the squares.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's I'll show it to you in a second. It's mind-blowing.
I'll do my my Vitruvian Man thing I did a few years ago. Are you seeing this?
Yes, I'm not seeing a Vitruvian Man. I'm seeing a bunch of large boulders.
Oh, okay. Okay, so let's see. Then I guess it's a little bit different than sharing on Zoom. So let's see if I minimize share. There we go.
Yep, I see it.
Yeah. Then let me.
The Hexapentacus.
So this is based upon the integration of the pentagon and the hexagon.
Yep. This is the Dürer method.
Yep.
The Albrecht Dürer method.
Yep. And interesting, I find that to be a key geometry throughout.
It's DNA.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the nucleotide pairing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right there. It's DNA.
That's beautiful. That's really cool. So let me show you what I found on. I work with this guy named Alan Green.
I know that name.
And Alan has been the fellow that decrypted Shakespeare's works.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's where I would have heard it, yeah.
And together we did Da Vinci's works, and we've done it on many of his paintings. But I'll show you this right here. Here we go. Screen again. Okay, entire screen. There we go. Share. Okay, so you should see this now.
Yep.
All right. So let's see.
Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man has mystified mankind for centuries. The position of his circle
Can we get a little more
does
volume?
not match the position
Sure.
of
Let me
the
see.
Right here.
way of squaring the circle.
Let me see if I can. Why is it not getting loud for you? So you want more volume?
Yeah. Unless you just want to.
I could just talk to it. Yeah, I'll just talk to it.
That'll work.
Okay, here we go.
By raising the square circle.
So by raising the square to the center of the circle,
Yep.
right, we can find and do a little bit more investigation as to what was going on. Why did he choose this square and that circle? By the way, the square has an area of the Euler number.
Okay.
The circle has an area of pi. 200 years before the Euler number was discovered.
Okay.
So nobody knew he was actually squaring the circle, but understanding the transition between scalar waves, which requires sexagesimal math, and transverse waves of light. So gravity and time. Gravity, time, light, energy. So he understood this, and that's how light is made. It's, again, the Euler number is related to Euler to the power of pi. These are like super advanced principles that he encrypted. And so what we did is we started looking. You may be interested to know that in Da Vinci's actual drawing, the diameter of the circle was 8.64 inches.
In Da Vinci's original drawing?
In Da Vinci's original drawing, the measurement of the circle's diameter for a circle and square is 8.64 inches. Which is like, wow, that's pretty amazing. Wow. So then we found that we could put the sun right inside that. 8.64 inches. So then we extend this analysis a little bit further. That's the diameter of the circle. So then we have Saturn, which would be 7.236 inches approximately. And look where that fits, right inside the square, almost perfectly. And because it's oblate, you get the averages, and it works perfectly. You have to take the polar circumference and the equatorial. So then you just extend the squares and circles within each other, and let's see what else we can find. We already found the sun and Saturn. The center circle is root 2. And these are all root 2 relationships of each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So each one of these is defining what the diameters would be for each of these, circles and squares as well. And then we can compare it against all the planets. So start with the sun. So that's a perfect match.
Mm-hmm.
8.64 inches diameter. Jupiter would be 0.864 comparatively, but it's just an order of magnitude. Saturn fits inside the square. Uranus fits in that circle and square relationship. Neptune does as well. And you can see these are all really, really close, like 99 point, 9 or 99.7% accuracies. But if you actually use the average of equatorial and polar circumference, they're perfect. Just like the moon, there's your 216.
Mm-hmm.
And Pluto. So the only one that's missing is Venus.
It's interesting.
But it's actually not so missing because it's slightly larger than that circle, right? And square relationship, but it is a root 2 relationship versus the other internal square that went with the dotted line. So we take that area of the square, area of the circle for that square, or this would be the Venus square is 0.841. It's sine 1 radians. And this comes out then to give us as well Earth, 7920. And that relationship is again a root 2 relationship against Venus.
Uh-huh.
So you can see that outer square.
Yep.
7.92 inches. And then how does that relate against Venus? 7.52. The area of the square, area of circle, root 2.
Uh-huh.
So then you've got all the planets matching this same convention. I'll send you that video so you can, as part of your,
awesome.
yeah. So, the last thing I wanted to show you, which I think is most relevant to our conversation and timely, is this. So this is the King's Chamber.
Right.
And just like your chart of the zodiac, we've got on the north wall where the bull and the cow are.
Yep.
Right. And Orion, Taurus. So then you have Aries, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, Sagittarius, Scorpio, etc., Libra, and so on. The west wall of the King's Chamber, the Egyptians, they didn't die. They went to the west. They were westing. So this is where the sarcophagus is right now, but we know it was moved from its original position. If you look at the Orion constellation, it roughly also has the same proportions, right, as the 2-to-1 relationship of the King's Chamber. And when we do that, the sarcophagus is exactly the right size to encompass the 3 belt stars of Orion.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like a story of Orion going through the precession of equinox.
Mm-hmm.
And every 6,000 years, and the reason I say 6,000, there's a long cycle and there's a short cycle of the precession. The long cycle is 25,920 basis, which then it's half of it is 12,960.
Right.
The short cycle, as we increase our gravitational pull and velocity, like 2 stars that have a slingshot, ends up being 11,040 years. The total then comes out to 24,000, and that matches the logarithmic base value of a mod 24. So it's like two right triangles. It's like a pendulum swinging. Now, what I estimate is that the last time we had a pole shift would have been about 6,000 years ago. So about 4,461 BC would have been when we shifted to Polaris. Before that, it was in Thuban. So that would have happened where these red lines go across right here. So in Thuban, we were in Dracos, and that would have been 10,931 BC. So about 13,000 years ago. And then we've got Vega that would have been in Lyra, right? And all of those constellations are on the north wall because those, of course, would be representing the North Star shifting. So it's like Orion is going through when he's sideways and then standing straight up and then on his side and upside down. When Orion's upside down, it seems like we're in lost history. We're in a bad place, right? We lose the history. We have a pole shift. And along with the pole shift usually is accompanied some sort of cataclysmic asteroid or comet and then a deluge, which sort of like cleans the set.
Well, let me show you one last image here.
Okay.
That you'll find interesting, I think. So I will do a share screen.
Perfect. I see it.
Now let me go to the presentation mode. Okay. So there you see the green dots.
Yep.
Okay, so what I've done going through the geological record, I've plotted all of the events to with their dates typically are within a century. And I think you'll see some clustering happen. Now, of course, I'm sure this is far from complete. But interestingly, look at this axis that we're on now.
Yep.
The Aquarian, from the cusp of Virgo Leo to the cusp of Pisces Aquarius really seems to have a bunch of events clustered along that axis.
Yep.
We had major events at 4320 years ago, a major event at 6480. We had a major event at 8640. Now, all of these are the round numbers, but they're all within from a few decades.
So that would be 6480 years ago, or is it
years ago? Yes.
Okay, so that's pretty close. I had 4468 BC.
Yeah.
Which would be 6470.
So that 10 years off. And like I said, these numbers here, they're not necessarily going to be exactly precise, but they're all going to be within from a decade or two up to maybe at the most a century or two variance from the dates that are given in the literature.
So then the date that I had for the Thuban pole shift in Dracos would have been 10,931 BC, or about 12,900 years ago.
Right, and then so you've got 12,900. We've got
so that's pretty close.
Yeah. So what happens? 12,960. If you go times 3, which would give you a date of 12,960 times 3 will give you 38,880 years. So there was a Heinrich event, and that was Heinrich event 4. And then we have Heinrich event, and Heinrich events, are discontinuities within the record, the depositional record of sea cores. So in other words, typically you will have marley type, very fine grained sediment from all of the little benthic and planktonic creatures that are living within the water column that build their shells out of calcium carbonate. They die, they settle down, and it forms this fine-grained layer. But that is regularly interrupted by coarse, gravelly layers, and those coarse, gravelly layers are typically terrestrial in origin. So you've got gravels, like particularly they're prominent in the Atlantic, because what that means is you've got a major discharge, a disgorging of ice from the ice sheets. Now, the ice, as it's expanding across the continental landmass, it's entraining, picking up and entraining, terrigenous material from the continents. So now, when these ice breakdowns, these destructions of the ice sheet occur, it disgorges thousands of icebergs into the ocean. Those icebergs, as they drift south, they begin to melt. And when they melt, their cargo of coarse terrigenous material then drops to the floor of the ocean, and it makes a very distinct layer. And those layers can be dated. And so when you see the Heinrich events here, these Heinrich events, so Heinrich event 4, there was a coarse layer of terrigenous sediment at 3 times 12,960, or a cycle and a half ago, which is 38,880 years. And again, no, the dating is within from a few decades to a few centuries. So right on that cusp, you had 3 major Heinrich events that occurred. So what's the explanation for Heinrich event? It's pretty vague so far in the literature. All that we can say is that, something causes a massive destruction of the ice sheets. And as a result of that massive destruction and that melting, you have this large volumes of meltwater carrying thousands of icebergs into the oceans, primarily the North Atlantic, because North Atlantic is being fed by Laurentide ice sheet, Fennoscandian ice sheet, and the Greenland ice sheet. And apparently those ice sheets are undergoing catastrophic destruction simultaneously. They disgorge into the Northern Atlantic, they melt, and they create these Heinrich layers, and those Heinrich layers can be dated. So those are some of the things that I've plotted on this chart here. And, look, termination of Heinrich event number 2 occurred 23,760 years ago. And at, if we go here, onset of the late glacial, Wisconsin glacial state usually is dated 26 to 27,000 years ago. What happens though is, if you have a transition from an interglacial climate to a full glacial climate, there's going to be a lag period, obviously, between that time and you get massive ice sheet growth, right? So the climate shifts apparently in a split second. I mean, in a geological eye blink. Typically, from what we know of the Younger Dryas, these climate shifts between glacial and interglacial can occur in less than 3 years. What causes that? Still an open question. Comets, asteroid impacts, to me, are the most likely. But the thing is that when you have a great impact or series of impact type events, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that there's an endogenic response to that, primarily in enhanced volcanism and enhanced seismicity. So then that would create a series of feedbacks that would then amplify the original catastrophic trigger event, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think that, one of the things that I keep coming back to is this whole Apophis.
Yeah.
And, I think that it's going to, that period of time that goes all the way, I think it swings back around again in 2036. Right?
I believe that's right. Yeah. So the question then becomes, how much will its orbit be perturbed in the 2029 close encounter?
2029.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that what we're dealing with here and why the King's Chamber has long walls, like a 2-to-1 ratio, is because of this formation of those stars, right? And their proportion that they have, which is also 2-to-1. It's also matching Orion going through the constellations and the story of the hero's journey. And you have the sarcophagus that should be at the center of the room, because that actually is what houses the solar plexus. And if you look at Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, you'll notice that on the Vitruvian Man as well, there's actually 3. I'll show you this. There we go. The Vitruvian Man also has 3 diamonds on his solar plexus. And those 3 diamonds are exactly the position of the 3 pyramids of Giza, which is another kind of mind boggler, right? So first of all, this is an old astrology kind of orrery globe that I have. And I looked at it, I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting. It's kind of remarkably close to the King's Chamber proportions as well. And then I measured to see if the 3 stars of the belt stars actually fit inside the sarcophagus perfectly, and they do, which is also matching the Ark of the Covenant's proportions. So I think there's something, to this. And then if you look at Vitruvian Man, right, there is another relationship that we can find where Vitruvian Man has on his, let me see, I can pull this up here. Before I do that, I'll just show you this real quick.
Okay.
So this is one of the petroglyphs on the walls. And you can see here a woman, right, riding this horse with her hand out like this, and her head, you'll see it here pretty close. So I can trace it using AI. And this is Delphinus. And you can see the arrowhead right there as well, riding the Pegasus. And this is from the actual King's Chamber wall, filming it. And then from this, we see the Aquila, which is also in Capricorn, and they're all next to each other in the zodiac. And so if this was true, then we realized that next to the Aquila should be a fish right above its wing. And guess what? There's a vesica right on that wall. You can see a fish right here. It's like an eye shaped. See if I can bring it down a little bit. You see the fish right here with a tail?
It's hard to make out on a large. Yeah, okay.
There's a fish right here, and it's like, what the heck? And it's exactly in the spot that you would expect it to be Piscis Austrinus. So the winged horse is Pegasus right here. The Piscis Austrinus is right above the wing of the Aquila. The Delphinus is the woman. The Aquila is the bird. The Sagitta right next to it. These are exactly the deacon of astrology. So I think they're telling us something about obviously these, constellations, etc. But I'll show you this one last thing. So I think we're definitely on the same hunt here.
It would appear so.
That's definitely what it's feeling like. So let me find this for you. Okay, here we go. So we go back to Vitruvian Man, and here's again that same image that I just showed you, the bull and the cow. You can find all this stuff. I've posted quite a bit of it.
Okay.
And here again it is, but there is a Vitruvian Man right here. Now look, if we look really closely at Vitruvian Man, he's got like the strangest stomach of all time. Look at that. 3 diamond shapes.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Can you believe that? And it's literally Orion's belt, and then you got the Sphinx right in front of it.
What was that Da Vinci up to?
Well, he worked for the Sultan of Cairo.
Okay.
We do know that now. And look at that. Look at that. So, here it is. It's all hidden in plain sight. I think what we're living in is a simulation. that goes through cycles, and it's all part of how consciousness evolves. So it's not a bad thing that we're going to go through another catastrophic experience. It's just part of the cycle.
Well,
And I believe that there needs to be, the reason why people like you and I are getting this information is because, there's part of it that has to survive through. And we've got to somehow get this information out. I don't know if you saw that movie, Don't Look Up, but sometimes I feel like that because I feel like something's definitely coming.
Well, based upon the chronologies that we have now available, it would seem like we're due for, a nodal point.
Absolutely. And so that's what I wanted to share with you because, obviously all this stuff, it's also very beautiful because what's happening now is the divine is like revealing itself, which I think is wonderful. But we're going to go through something, I think, very, very significant in our lifetimes. And I feel pretty confident. And one of the things that's really important is you asked about Da Vinci. Da Vinci, in the last 10 years of his life, did several drawings of deluges. And they're not just normal deluges. So you can look them up. They look like water springing out of giant mountaintops. As if the way he describes it is a crust-like displacement, a mantle separation, and that the water comes from inside the earth. That's the way he described it. He became very Nostradamus-like in the last 10 years of his life. There are many, many paintings of the Da Vinci deluges.
Yeah, I've seen some of them. Yeah, I'm gonna have a fresh look. See if I can discern anything happening there.
And I even think he describes a comet or an asteroid or something.
Well, that would make sense. Sure would. Because that is something that I think you could actually plot the timing of that based upon cosmic rhythms that are governed essentially by the same numbers. And if those ice sheet destructions are the result of cosmic impacts, or say possibly another would be the solar activity, heightened solar activity. But there's an interesting thing I have only begun to explore into it, but what happens when you have the infall of cometary masses into the solar chromosphere? It seems like there is evidence that the rapid acceleration of a comet mass, even of, say, the scale of Halley's Comet, actually seems to trigger a response in the chromosphere and introduce instabilities that lead to mass ejections and solar storms and so on. So if you had a major influx of cometary material, whether it's a single nucleus or let's say like in some of the scenarios of Victor Klube and William Napier and so on, who've been looking at the potential of a large scale influx of a large comet that breaks up and undergoes a hierarchy of disintegrations, and then eventually that is disintegrates into dust on some of it. Some of it is impacts planets, and the rest of it is sucked up into the sun. And if you had a very large scale infall of cometary mass into the sun, there's some evidence that seems to be suggesting that there could be a pretty significant outsized disproportionate response on the part of the sun. So it could be that we're looking at these kind of things that could be almost like perfect storms, where one trigger can cause a whole cascading series of feedbacks. That I think that maybe even a lot of the activity that we are still experiencing in terms of seismicity and volcanicity are still the after effects of what happened in the Younger Dryas.
Yeah.
But I am going to have to run in a minute. I was
yes, me too. But Thank you so much, and we'll schedule another time.
Oh yeah.
When generally would be good for you?
Well, this is a pretty good time for me.
Okay.
I'm going to be, between now and about the what is it, the 14th of this month, I'll be on the road, but then I'll be back and I'll be around for about a month here in the studio because, I'm launching this new podcast, which, as I mentioned to you, is called Squaring the Circle. So,
Yes.
maybe you jump on with me.
I would
at
love
this
to.
point, and we could, yeah. And if I could just say for a minute, just to promote the site, to promote the podcast.
Absolutely.
I'm
I'd
going
love
to be
to.
hosted on Rumble. You're probably
Mm-hmm.
familiar with them, and they promised me no censorship. Pretty much First Amendment free speech rights. Because sometimes,
That's important.
yeah, in this line, you often say things that are considered controversial by mainstream. So yeah, I'm going to kind of have an interesting mix. I'm going to do my podcast, which is just me talking about. I might be just might be reading something that I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
The episode we recorded last night is a PowerPoint show. I'm talking about wildfires and the cause of wildfires, and are they the consequence of our activity, or is it a natural phenomena? So that's recorded. It's in the can. It should be up next week. So it's gonna be a spectrum of subject matter, and I'm not going to limit it. I might talk about current events, everything from current events up to metaphysics and everything in between. The science, I'm going to talk about the science of geology and astronomy, ancient history, how we can take all of those lessons and make our world a better place.
I love it.
Yeah. And then we'll be doing, when I probably in April, I'll be out in Arizona near Sedona, probably do a field podcast from there. Then in May, I'm going to be up in the great floodlands of Washington. So I'll probably do a field podcast from there. And then there'll be, the typical, the bonus footage and
Well, if you want, I can come out to you as well to do a
that'd be cool.
podcast with you
That
in
would
person.
be awesome. And yeah, I think I would love to show you around some of these things that I've been
I would love
studying
it.
for decades in the field.
So,
Yeah.
so let's plan on that. Let's do our next call so we can get this one, and I'll come. I'm going to Egypt this next week.
Okay.
And I'm going with Matthias Di Stefano. You may know him, the guy that does the remembers his past lives in Atlantis type thing.
Oh, okay.
And he's got a few shows on Gaia that have been very popular. But
Okay.
I'm going to go buy an island in the Nile, buy Aswan.
Okay. Well, hey, why not?
Why not? That's right. Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
We're going to build a retreat center on there and everything. But basically, I would love to come and visit you. I think it would be great to spend, a couple days or something and learning all the stuff that you've got.
What we do is we've developed a relationship with some resort owners up there on Soap Lake, Washington, which is a real good starting off point for exploring. So we use that kind of as our base camp. It's cabins, a historic hotel right there on Soap Lake, Washington. And they're constantly, new owners bought it about 5, 6, 7 years ago, and we've gotten to know them quite well. And we've been running tours out of there now, I think 4 or 5 years now, and it makes a really good base. So we'll have full view passenger vans. We'll go out for the day. We'll explore these sites. Then we come back, and typically they'll have dinner waiting for us, and they've given us pretty much run of the place. So
Sounds awesome.
It is. We have a lot of fun. Plus,
I
it's
bet.
believe me, a week out there seeing these sites in the field, it's like, what can I say? Because it really drives home. You can look at all the imagery and satellite photographs and draw. Nothing compares to spending a week in the field, seeing all of this firsthand and tracing out the movements, the pathways of these great currents of water sweeping over the landscape. It's something to experience. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Join us, Robert, and yeah, we could maybe. And so they give us access to the conference room, so we can go in there, we can set up, we can broadcast a podcast right from there.
Awesome. Let's do it. All right. Well, I've got to run right now. I know you do too.
Yep.
Have a wonderful night. I'll send you a text message or something, and we'll schedule another time
Yeah,
to
sounds
finish
great.
this up. And
Yep.
good luck with your Squaring the Circle podcast, and good luck with doing all the geometry of the pyramid complex. I think you're going to love it.
Oh, I know I am. I mean, I love geometry. You can see I've been doing geometry since I was a kid, basically.
You're going to love this because it actually does. It gives us this beautiful story of the tetractys 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yep. Okay.
It's a beauty. Have a
Well,
great weekend, my friend.
And
We'll see
I've
you soon.
enjoyed learning.
Likewise. All the
Okay.
best. Bye-bye.
So long.